This week, I wanted to talk about something I haven't had the opportunity to do in quite a while, and that is take uh, photographs of an actual competition going on. Now, one of the early things that I got the opportunity to take pictures of was a Taekwondo competition. And there's several things you have to do when you're taking these types of photographs. First is you have to have a feel for what's going on, and an idea of kind of what is going to occur and when. Now, you're not really getting inside the heads of the competitors, but you're trying to kind of figure out where they're going to go. And if you've seen the competitor before, for example, if they were in a prior match, you can get a feel for what to expect from them. Some competitors are fairly consistent in the way they approach their opponent, and you'll see that in a lot of martial arts. As a matter of fact, it was one of Bruce Lee's main tenets when he did his version, was that each discipline approached things pretty much the same way every single time. And you could beat an opponent by modifying your technique to negate their technique. So with photography of this nature, you're going to need to have a zoomable lens. And the reason I say that is, first, you're not going to get that close to the competition for the most part. If you're taking photographs of a particular competitor, you might be able to get close to, for martial arts, the mat, or maybe get a little bit more close for a fencing competition or something. But for the most part, you're going to be away from the activity. Why? Around a martial arts competition, there could be other competitors along the edge of the mat, so it's going to set you back from the mat. You also don't want to get in the way of the referees or interfere with the match in any way. And martial arts, while you're limited to the square of the mat, it's a pretty good sized mat. For fencing, it moves a little bit, but when you're shooting at it, it's not going to move distance-wise from you. It's not going to get closer or further away because they're going to stay pretty much in a straight line. So it's going to move left or right. Now, the reason having a good lens that you can zoom is important is you're going to have such distance from you that a normal lens is going to make it look small, and you're going to have to crop. And you don't want to crop unless you absolutely have to. But one thing I noticed with the fencing that was different than a martial art competition, for example, is the fact that they use very narrow foils. And I noticed as I was taking the pictures, even though I was zooming in, it was difficult to see the foil as clearly as I wanted to. Now, part of that problem was the fact that they were shooting against a stone wall for a background. And it just kind of all became blended together. Now, if I zoom in just a little bit more on the photographs, I can see those foils very clearly. And that's the reason you need to have good glass, is if you do have to crop, then you want to be able to make sure that you've got a crisp photograph. So a good number of megapixels and a very crisp photo with good glass. But the other issue that I had shooting it was I wasn't 100% sure what they were going to do. I'm not normally a person who watches fencing competitions. Other than seeing it in some movies or a James Bond flick, it's not a normal thing for me to see. And it would have been very difficult getting the earlier rounds that they had. And the reason for that is they had several going on at the same time, just like you would in a martial arts competition. And I didn't know any of the players. So it wasn't like I knew who the most likely people to go on to the finals were going to be, nor did I have an idea of what to expect competitor versus competitor. Fencing is pretty straightforward. I expected a little bit more feeling out of the opponent when they went into the finals and semifinals, but I didn't see that. It was more like just trying to go in. Part of that is the fencing competition was 3 rounds of 3 minutes each. And when you hit the 3-minute mark, it was done. It was the first to 15 points. And the other interesting thing to me was the fact that if both competitors scored a point, it didn't negate it. Like in a lot of martial arts competitions, if there's a double strike, they'll just call it a flat nothing. But in fencing, when there's a double strike, each person gets a point. So you can get to 15 points in a tie because you each score a point every single clash. But I found that an interesting side note to what was going on. But from the photography standpoint, I was a good distance away, and everybody was, from the competition. And I elevated myself so I could get a bird's eye view down. The problem that you're going to run across, however, is the referee for the fencing competition, in this case, was dead center. And because they were going left and right, they weren't going very left and right. They were staying in a small contained area, which is easier to shoot, but it means that the referee is directly in your line of sight. So unless they move to the right or left of where the referee was standing, you didn't get much of a shot. You could get part of what the action was, but you couldn't get all of the action because of the referee's presence. And that was the way they set up the area in which they were performing this competition. There's a couple of things that I would have done differently as far as setups, both for the audience's ability to see the action, as well as to make things a little easier on the referee. For example, the tips of the foils are what score the point. And when they touch, a machine registers that touch. Well, the machine registers the touch with light, and so having it in direct sunlight is not the best way for the referee to see that. Now, it's not overly fast-paced, so the referee could probably figure out what it was without the device. But if the sun's setting in the west, you don't want to put this device in the east. Just my opinion. But having that good glass that allows you to capture both the area around the competition and then be able to zoom in on the competitors is very important. So if you're going to be shooting any kind of competition, fencing is very specific on where things are going to be, just as tennis would be very specific on what you're going to shoot and where. But get a flavor for, or a feel for the flavor of the event. Go watch some, if you're going to do tennis competitions for a while. Watch a baseball game. Watch your local football team playing if you're going to be shooting the high school football team. See how they normally play, what the game looks like. Now, there's several things that we're probably very used to seeing, and one of it is baseball or football. And there's more exotic things like fencing, maybe tennis, or martial arts that we're not as familiar with. But find a place where you can just sit and watch and figure out how you would take the photographs before you actually have to do an event such as that, or even if you want to do events such as that. It can be a nice addition to your photographic portfolio if you've got somebody who competes in this type of sport. Get a feel for how they approach things, and then you get some really nice portraits of them doing something that they enjoy. So again, having good glass and having a camera with a higher megapixel count will make your life a little easier. If you need to crop at the end, I needed to, for the simple fact that I was not as confident in what I was going to be capturing and knowing what was going to happen and when. If I were more confident, if I had seen more of these competitions, I probably would have zoomed in closer and been okay with that. But I wasn't sure how fast it was going to go left or right, or what they were going to do, like to feel each other out. In a martial arts competition, you'll see them throw some kicks. Same with the boxers. You see them throw those couple of punches that don't look like they want to land. They just want to see what the other person's reaction is going to be. And I didn't see that in the fencing semifinal and final that I was shooting. So I wasn't really sure where they were going to go. And that made me want to be further back, which required me to crop more. So get out there, make sure you've got good glass, make sure you see some of this competition beforehand so you can get a feel for what to expect. And then you can give your clients some wonderful photographs of them doing something that they love. And that's what I got for you guys this week, and I will talk to you all next week.